I dated a very, very wealthy girl. And I remember how good it smelled. I remember their perfume, their cologne, their perfect clothing, their beautiful houses and the interior of their cars. You know, wealth like that is... Every time the left talks about violence, I'm like, I have friends. Don't wake those dogs up. They shoot so much straighter than you do.
At the end of the day, it comes down to one man with a gun and another man with a gun. And I'm not going to fucking lose.
You hear that?
Oh, it sounded like a threat, didn't it?
Yeah, he'll unzip that.
It's the male tries to kind of like take on the female characteristics to be allowed in so that the more dominant male doesn't act aggressive towards him.
I needed to push against something. I needed to be uncomfortable. So I went and worked out until I was going to throw up.
The movie is a lovable loser, right, who goes on a literal journey of self-discovery, learns that hard work, fellowship, partnership, you know, rises to the occasion, saves his dad's company, gets the girl. That's America, man.
Everyone's a victim!
What's up? Welcome back, folks. It's your boy Gerard Michaels here with the lovely Candice Horbacz. Have we settled on it or what?
No, it's not settled. Just say however you want to say
Horbacz.
it. It's fine.
Right. With the lovely Candice Horbacz. D'Anthony.
Yeah.
How are you doing, buddy? Good to
Why
see you
is that
again.
a thing?
Because Ross is retarded. That's why. Like no one's ever even said that to me before until we started this stupid shit. And then he just started calling me that one day. And
D'Anthony.
He's got the only child syndrome, so any positive attention just makes it way worse.
Yeah.
So people in the audience were like, "Oh, that's funny." And he goes, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to say it every day forever then." And there's actually a fucking hair care place. It's ethnic in San Antonio called D'Anthony's.
You have an ethnic beard.
I do, yeah.
You look like if I made the movie The Book of Joshua, you would be Joshua, the Hebrew warrior.
I am slightly Jewish.
Are you?
Yeah, I've been trying to take medicine.
Well,
but
nobody's perfect. So that's Dan Holloway. You know him from Black Rifle Coffee, the Citizen Podcast, Hard AF Seltzer, the Drinking Bros Podcast, and being professionally violent and recreationally good looking. And that was the siren song of the world famous Bryan Callen. All-state wrestler in high school, is that correct?
I don't know about all state, but certainly took third in the All New Englands, guys.
Well, hey, listen,
1987.
if there's anything anybody knows
I don't have
about-
any videotape. We didn't have video back then.
Well, is there anybody in Massachusetts that's not in New England?
No, that's
Like who else is out there? I don't want to know.
They had the All New England tournament at MIT every year. So that was when the prep school kids would wrestle the public school kids. We'd all come together and roll
Wait, which
it out.
one?
Yeah, who won?
Daddy
Which one were you?
Daddy was boarding school because my mommy and daddy were in Saudi Arabia at the time. So I was shipped off to boarding school in that's why I have a hole I can't fill. They threw me away.
Now
Well,
your
we'll
dad,
help you try to fill that hole today.
I think your dad was serving his
consensually
country
or
at the
otherwise.
time.
But Callen, I'm going to say this for everybody to hear, and this is not just because you're within arm's length. I think you are the single greatest working comic today. Stand-up
Jesus.
comic. I think you are as good as it gets as a stage performer, man.
That's such a compliment.
And
Thank
it's
You elevated last night. I'm not kidding.
It was so good.
you. I don't know how many times I've seen you. Just a year ago, I think at Cap City, I saw you. This one, the soliloquy at the end, the way you tied it back into the callbacks from earlier in the show was very Carlin. It was very impressive. The best I've ever seen you.
Man, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's always nerve-wracking too because you don't, I had all these people who were in my green room and from Lex Friedman to Michael Malice to you guys and Rogan's there and Theo Vaughn and my buddy Brendan Schaub said, "How did you not take any pictures? You took no pictures." You got
We got one in that weird hallway. And that's pretty much it.
But I never. Because I think I was thinking, I was so preoccupied with trying to get what I had written out because you only have 2 shots at it. So I was only thinking about that. So it always feels good when you kind of were able to capture because it gets to a boiling point. You can't push. You have to just flow and let it go and kind of try to get out what you're trying to say. Like the theme of any story, regardless of what it is the author's argument for how one should behave in the world.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I mean, there's like different. So there's only a couple of dudes, to Gerard's point, that it's a narrative from the start of the hour to the end of the hour. Not many people can do that, to be honest. Like, there's a lot of people that could do an hour of comedy, but to do something that starts off with a motif and ends with it as well, and it's a capstone to that motif, is pretty good writing.
And have the comedy lead where it's not preachy. It doesn't feel like, you know, you're getting lectured at.
Yeah, I think comedy is important that way, right? Because it's lubrication. I think the minute we start being told something from that pulpit, I think there's something about being up here and saying, here's how things should be. And I think comedy, what's important about stand-up is making sure you understand you're not smarter than your audience, because you're not. You certainly not better than your audience. I don't care who it is. Because, you know, intelligence, like courage, is compartmentalized. So you might be good at making people laugh. You don't know more about life, especially people who come into contact with objective reality all the time. It's why I like being around soldiers and people who build businesses and stuff like that. There's just something about that you learn things you don't learn when you are somebody who only works with their mouth, for example. Putting your hands on the world is something different. So yeah, comedy is that way of kind of equalizing the playing field, and then you can slip in what you want to say.
Yeah, you know, it's very interesting that you say it that way, because Candice and I have talked about it on previous shows. But I feel like what happened during the woke PC movement, whatever, if you will, and it started from the top down. Everybody takes their cues off of, you know, who's getting booked, by who, where, what's SNL talking about. And the activism became more important than the comedy. The message became more important than the delivery. And it's in contrast to one another. They can't live, right? Because activism is supposed to be taken seriously by nature, and comedy is supposed to not be taken seriously by nature.
It's the same thing that happens with the press, though, right? Like you purchase access to things with how, I guess, into the current thing you are, how supportive you are of whatever the top level thing is. But comedy is meant to be subversive.
Of course,
and the press is meant to hold power accountable.
Art should disturb.
Yeah,
art should shake up. Art is satire.
Shakespeare's the original.
Right.
He wrote for 25 years subversive to the English crown the whole time while he was friends with all those assholes. Whether it was him or not, somebody did it, and they didn't get executed for it.
I love that Dan carries a gun and will shoot you in the face, but will quote Shakespeare and understands Shakespeare's historical significance.
Plato,
it's one of my favorite things about that guy. But you're right. And you know, the thing about the reason I don't think woke, even though they're trying to keep it going. Every time I love to read legacy media to see these people that are essentially in crisis. Nobody's making any money in any of these publications. The New York Times makes money because of their crossword puzzle, but nobody reads the articles. And you know, it's sexless, it's humorless, and it's reductive. You know, it just reduces every situation to, you know, power, powerless, oppressed, oppressor.
It's insulting to people. People are so much more.
It's just not true.
It's not true. People are so much more complex than that.
Yes.
Right, and it's so insulting to try to have not just your life, but the entire fucking world reduced down to these couple of things that are the truth. All of a sudden,
but it's intentional. Dude. That's critical theory. That's what it is. It's supposed to just get rid of your foundations for any sort of belief, right? Like,
that's the
you
whole
believe
point.
in the American,
that's the whole point.
You know, experiment. Then you love people that were slave owners. And it's like, well, those are my two options.
That's why, like, I love so. In the Brothers Karamazov, the Dostoevsky is a great writer because he made Ivan, the oldest brother, who didn't believe in God, and Dostoevsky was profoundly religious, and he made Ivan the oldest brother, and somebody that's very hard to argue with, because Ivan had been broken by the world.
It's called steel manning, by the way, which is what you're supposed to do when you're having an intellectual argument with somebody.
Exactly, and so The Grapes of Wrath is a great book to me, but I heard someone say it's not a great book, it's a good book. And the reason it's a good book and not a great book is because Steinbeck forgot to put in there the perspective of the orange growers, the owners of the orchards. So we only saw the migrants from the Dust Bowl come in, and they were starving, and you know it was very hard for them, and they were being, you know, broken apart and bent in half by these oppressive orange growers. We should have seen their perspective. We should have seen any great movie, the bad guy always breaks your heart a little bit. The bad guy says, I'm not the bad guy, I'm just a businessman.
The devil has the best lines, man.
Greed is good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Greed is
I mean,
good.
it's one of the most famous lines in all of cinema history. This doesn't just apply to art, by the way. In science, when you're writing a paper on something and you're doing primary research, typically the second to last section or paragraph is the authors addressing any kind of dissent that might have come up during the thing, right? Here's what other people are saying about because you put it out for peer review and then you add the spot later. Here's what people are saying about it. Here's our response to it. And you do it in a genuine way, right? Otherwise, your whole paper is bullshit, in my opinion.
Right.
And if you have ideology that's untested, you don't have anything.
Right.
So there's a couple things that came up in your special taping that I thought, so much of what you talked about, I think a lot of the brilliance of it's like internal monologue stuff. It's stuff we've all thought about. And it was almost like in a lot of ways, it was the intrusive thoughts. You know what I'm saying? It was like, he's saying it out loud. We're not supposed to admit any of this, right? Yeah. And the part that I loved was where you talked about what you would do if you became a billionaire and how it would reduce you down to a toddler, essentially, right? Yeah. And I thought about that a lot whenever anybody talks about like, hey, if you had superpowers, everybody sees themselves as the hero. Yeah. And if you've ever driven with me and you've ever been in traffic with me for 1 minute, you would know I would be a supervillain immediately, right? But I would try to justify my villainy by being like, well, that person was on the phone in the left lane, they had to go, right? So, and when you're kind of writing that and when you're exploring that sort of stuff, I know you're not in there with the billionaire and it's all coming to you right then. You must be kind of going back and thinking about that in that moment, right?
Yeah, I think, and I went to college at American University in DC. There were a lot of very, very wealthy Middle Eastern, like Saudi people. And I dated a very, very wealthy girl. And I remember how good it smelled. I remember their perfume, their cologne, their perfect clothing, their beautiful houses and the interior of their cars. Wealth like that is cozy. It smells good. It's so clean. And it tastes so good in general. It's just everything is considered. You can become almost fetishistic about how something feels, the kind of cream you put on your skin, what kind of water you wash your face with. And what's interesting about that is you can get, and then I remember I was in London, and I wasn't paying the bill, but we were eating at these, like, you name it, the best restaurants. We were just like, what restaurant should we go to? And by the third day, I felt like a stuffed goose. And I needed to push against something. I needed to be uncomfortable. So I went and worked out until I was gonna throw up. I just needed to do some shit. And then I had to stop eating for a day, because I just wanted to feel my ribs again. I wanted to feel like I was, and so I think that's what happens. You cannot follow a sensation. You cannot satiate every desire. You can't do it. It will corrupt you. Yeah. I mean, you can. Good luck. Enjoy that. But you have to. There's something I think as I get older that I enjoy. I enjoy self-restriction. It never gets easy. And I appreciate your compliment.
You're a
I
masochist?
I just have to throw away what I just wrote, and I have to come up with a whole new bag of tricks. I don't know. I'm always afraid because I'm afraid of repeating myself. I have to now kind of try to be original, which means I have to surprise myself first, right? But it all comes down to what you were saying, which is what really bothers you? What bothers you? What doesn't sit right with you? What feels like a lie? What is this mutual insincerity society we're all kind of going along with? Hollywood and the fashion world. What is going on with you guys? Like, why do you have somebody? You're talking about women. I love gender benders. I love the idea that you can have somebody trans in a movie. I don't give a shit about that. But don't start telling me that somebody with a bulge in their in their girl's bathing suit is a girl. Go fuck yourself. No.
I'm not going to participate in your fucking delusion.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah, but they're doing it on purpose
She has
too,
a
though.
different brain than I do. Thank God. Thank fucking God.
Yeah, we would all be fucked, by the way.
Dude.
Like, so hard.
Could you raise my kids? You and I would, the kids would die,
They
bro.
wouldn't have shoes on.
Correct.
For sure.
She,
They would be
She
armed
could
at a
babysit
very
my
young
kids
age.
right now.
Oh, yeah, 100%, yeah.
There's no guy's going to babysit my kids.
No.
including me.
No.
After a while, you're just like, oh, I forget. What happened? Where is the kid? You know.
Yeah, but what you're describing is intentionally antagonistic, and they're gaslighting people into acting like, why are you antagonizing?
Gaslighting.
Well, the only way to win that game
How are
is
you
to not,
antagonized?
the only way to win that game is to not play. You roll your eyes and you walk in the other direction.
Yeah.
And I also realize
satirize them also.
Well, but I also,
satirizing helps, but being rude doesn't help.
no.
It
But I
just
also,
emboldens them.
what I love about Michael Malice is Michael will fight. Michael is not bending the knee in any way because I don't think these people, these activists, these people, first of all, I don't think they're good people. I don't think they're interested in equality or anything else. They're interested in power.
No, I
So,
mean, socialists never loved the poor. They just hated the rich.
They're the worst
you
people.
know? That's it.
Socialists and all these people. I don't think AOC is a good person. I don't think she's a smart person either. Sorry. But and so I'm done being understanding. There is a time to fight, and those people are worth fighting. I'm not interested. I don't care that you don't like me anyway, and I definitely don't like you.
Yeah.
You know. And then I hear like this fucking singer. What's her name? Abel is her last name. Kane Abel.
What?
I don't know what the fuck her name is. She's a singer, and she says she did a hashtag kill all CEOs, and she says sometimes violence is the answer. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, left winger. You really want to start talking about that? You want to talk about every time the left talks about violence, I'm like, you guys I have friends, and I think about people like you. Don't wake those dogs up. They shoot so much straighter than you do. You don't want to step in that arena. It'll be the worst thing you can imagine.
Yeah, that's the Mountain Belly
wake
they do.
up. Don't wake the conservative lion up. Please don't do that.
They want to be the victim, though.
They don't have any idea what violence. They don't know what violence is, though. That fucking singer has never seen the kind of shit he's seen.
Think about, you've been a literal movie star. Think about a world. You think about the left-wing mind, if you want to call it that. In a world. Jussie Smollett, right? Yeah. He was a literal television and movie star, and he thought it would be better for him. It would give him more social clout to be the victim of a hate crime than to be a movie star.
Well, you're going to see something come out. I'll predict. I think Blake Lively really miscalculated when she sued Justin Baldoni for sexual harassment.
Yeah,
that
like,
dude's
fuck
got
off,
receipts,
dude.
bro.
Yeah.
He's like, really? I barged in on your trailer when you were breastfeeding?
Yeah.
This is interesting because you told me to come in. I mean, I have the whole, this arrogance and this decision to destroy somebody using that weaponry is outrageous. And I think
weird.
she's
what an odd choice too, because before this incident, almost universally well liked.
Yeah.
No,
Oh yeah.
we were talking about that though when you were in Wilmington. Though she's doing it because of all the bad press she got, so she's like, "This is going to recover all of my horrible interviews that are coming up,
Yeah,
and
like you-
resurfacing."
no,
'Cause she's
that's
like
not how
bullying
that
interviewers.
works.
Is that right, really?
Yeah, she's been horrible to so many people, and it's just like video after video after video.
It's kind
And
of an
everyone
Ellen
thought she
situation,
was
yeah.
like a really nice girl, but she's the mean girl the whole time.
She's awful.
And then she's used her husband to bully people too on the movie, like rewriting trailers and edits. And they use the same editor as from Deadpool for this like really dramatic romance abusive movie. And they're like, that tracks. And I'm like, no, this is horrible. He's not supposed to be editing this. And they ended up scrapping it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, they
She's been throwing away
took
around.
Baldoni off the movie, right? And then she had this whole checklist of what he had to do from now on. This guy was not this guy. Look, that guy Justin Baldoni, like he's like a feminist, and he gives all these. That turns my stomach a little bit. Okay, he's all sensitive. I'm not my kind of dude. But the one thing I guarantee that guy's not is a sexual harasser.
No.
It ain't. It doesn't track.
Well, it's, the value structure that we have. What social currency is matters as much as the food that you put in your body. Right?
These are sociopaths. I mean, Joy Taylor, literally, it's not that she slept her way to the top. Whatever, good for you. Use the tools God gave you. It's that she was so flippant when she was like, "Oh, if he doesn't give me the role, I'm just going to say that he abused me." And
God.
did you see that?
God. What a sociopath! Like you should go to jail for that shit. They are the worst people. I'm always amazed. I'm fucking always amazed at how bad people are. I don't know how you live with yourself. Like you are willing to destroy somebody to get further ahead. It's like I even having I can't. But listen. I think I've paid a price for being that naive. I told you my buddy who's a billionaire. I said something about this guy when I was like, I like him. He seems nice. He goes, the problem with you is you like everybody, dude. and you think everybody's nice like you. And you're the last person to see the asshole. We see him in 5 minutes. It takes you 10 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, that's such a liability.
I think a lot of it is this. We've gone from an honor-based society to a sneaky fucker-based society. Do you know what you know what sneaky fucker is? I know you guys all know what it is.
I live in LA, bro.
Yeah. So the background for the sneaky fucker thing is amongst certain types of creatures. Let's go with walrus for this one. There's a beach master. He's the largest, most powerful. He fucks all the chicks, and everybody else is a little bitch hanging on the other side of the hill. They're called sneaky fuckers because they'll wait for him to go to sleep. They'll sneak in and have sex. Right?
Walruses have Jodies too, man. Like,
no, he's there's one dude that's the man, and then these other walruses will sneak in. Sometimes they'll get killed because of it, right? But they're called sneaky fuckers.
I think Gad Sad has the thing about that.
A
Right?
lot of people talk about it. Yeah.
Like the boy fish will pretend to be girl fish, which is a lot of the male feminists, right? Like I support your cause.
Well, explain it for our audience that doesn't know.
Chick.
For our audience that isn't best friends with the Gad father like you, what is Gad talking about when he's talking about that?
No, it was just what he was saying. So it's the male tries to kind of like take on the female characteristics to be allowed in, so that the more dominant male doesn't act aggressive towards him. He gets accepted and protected by the females, and then he's like, oh, actually I'm a dude, and then he'll have sex with the female fish.
It's the fake gay guy.
It's like a way to like continue their legacy, right? Because otherwise you're not going to...
Let me get my genes in there.
Yeah, you traditionally wouldn't pick a feminine guy to protect your young or to provide.
Unless you're on hormonal birth control. Right? Hormonal birth control. I don't know why.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people aren't anymore. Like a lot of women are coming off of that because we realize it makes you crazy.
We have to...
And pick the wrong dude.
We have to look at what was done.
What is... Yeah, there's that balance, right? You're attracted to aggression and competitiveness, but then you don't want it turned against you.
Well, and this still happens naturally in your cycle. So if you're ovulating, you're going to be more attracted to like a traditionally masculine guy, and then when you're in a non-fertile window, you still have preference for a more feminine guy, but it's not as stark as the birth control. The birth control gets tricky because it messes your olfactory system. So
pheromones and such.
Yeah, so you can't pick up on the pheromones. So traditionally, they've done a study and they'll take a t-shirt that a guy's worn for 3 days, and they'll have the woman pick out which one she's most attracted to, and it's based off of biodiversity. So she'll pick the one that has like the least in common with her genetics, and then that's attraction. But when you're on birth control, it blocks everything. So you end up being attracted to something, maybe it's just aesthetic or common interest, but you're taking out all of the science and like evolution in what is attraction.
You can see it. Men
don't have shoulders anymore.
Men are raised. Yeah, men are raised by women, and then they start wearing really expensive sneakers.
You know how you can tell how old a deer is by the inside spread? How much hunting have you done?
Enough.
Not that much. So not enough to know this inside stupid bullshit. But when their ears lay flat, if the outside of the antler is beyond the outside of the ear, you can tell basically how old they are based on that, right? But depending on what time of the season it is. I do the same thing with people. For men, if you don't have shoulders, don't fucking talk to me. I don't want to hear that shit.
Yeah.
Go fucking work your delts until they can be seen.
Yeah.
And then
that's why my son,
single gayest thing I've ever heard.
But my 13-year-old son, I said, you got, he's doing jujitsu, and I go, well, you got 3 choices. You can get your black belt in jujitsu, or you can get your black belt in jiu-jitsu, or you can get your black belt in jiu-jitsu. And he's also wrestling. And I go, and you're going to be in high school, you got 3 choices. You can wrestle in high school, or you can wrestle in high school, you can wrestle in high school. Because for me, it changed my DNA, it changed everything.
Yeah.
And whether you lose, win, it doesn't matter. Just anything difficult, there's something about it. And I don't think you're not going to be an Olympic wrestler, you're not going to be in the UFC, but any sport, just get good at anything. And if you're not a sportsman, get good at the piano, get good at the guitar.
Something.
Get good at something, man.
Yeah.
But it's just important for anybody, especially a young man when you're growing up, like have your hands on somebody else, have somebody else's hands on you, survive the situation. And the more and more you survive that, and then if you get into a place where it's like, oh, I can actually take this dude down if I want to. I can actually choke this dude out.
Lex Friedman. Lex is an MIT
Who's blocked
professor.
me, by the way? Why have you blocked me, man? Why?
He blocked you?
Blocked me.
Lex was an MIT professor, was the guy who designed the self-driving program for Tesla, and he's a black belt in judo and jiu-jitsu.
Oh.
So enjoy that shit, everybody.
Uchigari.
That's a Russian. He can also play chess. He's got a
And he knows all the
square jaw.
poetry in
Oh,
the
dude.
world.
You know what I love about the Russians that are down at Killcliff? You know what they love saying? You know what we call sambo if it was easy? Jiu-jitsu. It's fucking guys. They're on a different level, man. But one of the things I really admired about, you know, your act too is the message is it's something for us all to contemplate. It's something it's about relationships. It's about aging. It was really great, but it was a togetherness and there was an empathy to it, especially, you know, you for the trans community specifically, you know, you kind of threw a shot across the Kill Tony bow there about, you know, the low hanging fruit that everybody's been going after. But you've run afoul of the woke mob. You had your cancel moment,
Of course.
and this is the big comeback, I would imagine, right? But
Yeah, I never thought about it. I just kept moving. You keep moving, and you stay close to the truth.
but you haven't. You're not spiteful. You haven't.
No.
You know, you didn't spike the ball in the end zone.
No
is what
way.
I'm saying. You're empathetic, and
What would
you're
be the-
calling for.
What would be
Yeah.
the purpose? Spite. Who does spite work for?
Right.
Oh, so it's all I run on. I run
think
on spite and carbohydrates.
Yeah, no,
Well-
bad idea, because resistance is always going to be there. And people will dislike you, and people will try to ruin you and all that. That's like having rocks in the way when you're running. It's just a rock. And it makes you better. I think your job, first of all, you're going to meet chaos. I don't care who you are. You will meet chaos. Like a person dies more than once if you live long enough. And you will, you know, typically you will build this persona. You'll build this persona. And it's going to be hard work, and it's going to work for you, and you're going to get successful at this, whoever this persona is. And you know, it'll come with some status, money, and whatever. It will get burnt away. Because first of all, it's yourself imagined. Who is this self? Who is this person you're protecting? What is this? Bryan Callen. What am I? Am I owed something? No. Am I a tough guy? No. Who am I? Well, this has all been a construct. And sometimes it all gets burned away, or whatever you were holding on to, you can't hold on to. And the gift there is that you will then be left with the people that actually matter. You'll be forced to learn how to focus your mind on what actually is productive. Now, you can not do that, and you can get bitter, and you can turn your back on your future, and you can hold resentment for certain people. But you unfortunately, I'm sorry, but you can't do that. It'll ruin you. You won't reach your potential.
Yeah.
You just go, oh, I got it. Cool. This is good fuel. This is good fuel. I've always wanted to be liked. And, you know, that can be destroyed. Look at Justin Baldoni, or look at a lot of people. You get one person say one thing about you, and you'll have an entire group of people in a flash decide who you are.
Sure.
And that's not fun, especially when you're in the business of look at me and like me.
External validation is fickle in that
And
regard,
it's
you know.
bullshit. I don't need your external validation.
No, you need your core identity, and it's why first principles matter so much. These people that have these like, oh god damn, just ever shifting political. Everybody's an expert on whatever the current thing is. Like, you don't know anything, dude.
You don't know anything.
Like, you don't shut your fucking mouth. You don't know anything about this. Like, even the most basic subject, which I think is liberty, right? Like, freedom of speech is the most. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, actually. To understand why censorship is so evil, you have to understand all the shit that had to happen to get rid of it, right? You have to understand that, and you don't have to go back too far. You could go back to Locke and Montesquieu specifically and understand that the ultimate right is the property right, and the ultimate property is yourself, and the ultimate expression of that is your thought. And somebody controlling what you say is controlling what you think. And that's evil. It's evil. It's not wrong. It's fucking evil to do that to somebody, right? So now you can say, okay, I am a free speech absolutist, and realize that it only matters when you fucking disagree with what the person's saying, right? But if you don't understand the core principle of that, people's interpretation of the First Amendment or freedom of speech is, well, so long as it doesn't offend me, then it's fine. That's not what the fuck it means.
Yeah. That's the first time I've heard John Locke was given that credit. I didn't know that. That's really cool.
No, the obscenity thing is the thing that always gets me, because I tend to be in the more free speech absolutist bucket, but then people always use porn, for example, as something that shouldn't be, or art. And they'll be like, well, the obscenity clause should be something that pulls this thing out of being protected under free speech. But in reality, it's something like 80% of everything that was banned in the Soviet Union was under the obscenity law. So,
really?
Yeah. And then you're like, well, define obscene. And then the definition is, I'll know it when I see it. Well, it doesn't get more subjective than that. So how do you think this is a good idea?
Which it was a female Supreme Court justice?
No, it was a male. It was. I'll know it when I see it.
Yeah.
And I know it when I see it.
Was it a male?
It was. I think it was a male, and I used to know his name, and I forgot now.
Oliver Wendell Holmes.
No, it definitely wasn't Thurgood Marshall. Black dudes would have been
I was
into
thinking
it.
that. I was thinking it was
No, black dudes would have been into it for sure.
Yeah.
I think there was two Oliver Wendell Holmes.
To the obscenity thing, so there was this Russian law. I can't remember what it was like. There was a number, 600 something or 460 something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it essentially criminalized everything, right? Anything the government interpreted as illegal was now illegal. And that included things that you just said. So anytime this is why government is also a problem, right? You cannot allow them to create weapons because they will use them against you. No matter how noble the intention, they will use that weapon against you, right? We've seen it over the last 25 years. All this stuff going on with the Patriot Act, the surveillance state, the FISA courts, and all that stuff.
It's incredible.
It's evil.
It is.
Right?
It's very, very disappointing seeing Tulsi come off that. But hopefully she's just saying what she needs to say to get.
What did she say? Catch me up.
Well, she's been against 702 for a while.
Yeah.
She voted against it in 2018, if I remember correctly, but now she's...
What's 702?
It's the FISA court stuff. Now she's playing
It's
ball
Tom
with
Cotton that is demanding that she...
Yeah.
The FISA courts are some of the most illegal shit possible. I mean,
Yeah, it basically just allows for warrantless wiretapping. It's a complete violation of the Fourth Amendment, right?
And it's always going to be abused.
Yeah, 100%.
It's impossible not to. That was the biggest. I mean, with Jefferson and I think Adams, the election of 1800, the biggest thing was, should the United States have a standing army? Because traditionally, when you had a standing army, a charismatic leader like Napoleon took it over.
And the answer was no.
And the answer
Jefferson authorized the Navy only to protect shipping and transportation. And I would say we should definitely get, as somebody who is in a standing army, we should get rid of it. I think we should get rid of it
You are
entirely.
I love how fucking literate. You read a lot. Not a lot. You've gone, but you've completed the circle in your education. You've read all the. Well, you've read thoroughly. You've taken the time to understand what Locke and Montesquieu's contribution to the long debate is. You have a good, strong understanding of the turning points in history. What are you? Is it reading? Are you taking courses? What are you doing?
I just read. I mean, to be frank, when I was younger, I had some social development issues, you might call them. So I started self-medicating with LSD at a pretty young age, around 11. Yeah.
Really?
At 11?
Yeah, and I was.
How do you get access to LSD at 11 years old?
You figure it out.
Older brother, look.
When
yeah,
you're Dan.
Yeah, so I mean, I actually read an Israeli medical journal where they were using it to treat autistic kids, right? So I was like, oh, that'll work for me. Which is a fucking bold move.
You're an academic. You're hopelessly academic.
But I just started reading shit on acid all the time.
But why did you go into the military? Why would a guy like you go into the military? I can just see you in books. But you have a physicality to you.
There's a... no matter what we create, you talked about the machines a little bit last night too. No matter what we create, what technology we create, what AI, whatever the fuck it is, weapons, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it comes down to one man with a gun and another man with a gun. And I'm not going to fucking lose.
Now it comes down with a geek with a drone and another geek with a drone.
No, because that geek's got a neck and I can fucking open it up.
Yeah. You hear that?
Oh, it sounded like a threat, didn't it?
Yeah, he'll unzip that neck.
Pop.
Not like your real estate guy.
Yeah.
We were talking about that. That was fucking hilarious.
He's like, I think he was talking about me. I was like, no, he said he did real estate.
Yeah, it's like, I've never done real estate.
No, you I would expect to have a knife.
I've got both. But,
Yeah, you understand how to use it. When I just have a guy who's like a civilian, I'm like, hey, bro, what's
hurt
with
one
the
of us.
sheath knife in Los
She
Angeles?
and I have gotten into this before about getting into knife
You
fights. Everybody
misunderstand it.
loses.
I'm not
Everybody
trying
loses
to
in a
get
knife
fight.
into,
Fuck that.
I'm not trying to get into a knife fight with anyone. It was before I was comfortable carrying. So especially with littles. So I would just have a knife, and then I was taught how to use it, not to get into a knife fight, but how to defend myself in said
Turn
fight.
around and run.
It's also
Yeah.
no, it's not. It's not assuming the
knife
other guy
is-
has a knife. It's assuming the other guy is unarmed,
Yeah,
which
you-
is why I had it.
You as a
And then
small woman
have
should
to have
have
something.
a weapon.
Exactly. But now I.
But
now
why would
I
you bring a
carry.
knife for that guy to just take from you?
No, he's not going to take it from me.
Or you're gonna die.
This
him
dude,
up?
I know how to use a knife.
I
It's
was
not
in,
gonna take
we
him
were
from
in
me.
this martial arts class, I did my jiu-jitsu class, and my professor is just a badass. But he's a military. He did a lot of shit. I won't even say his name because I know he's just one of those guys who really understands real weaponry and has done it. And so his son, who's one of the best jiu-jitsu people on the planet and an MMA fighter, fights in, I can't remember the league, but he's going to be something, but he's like 25 and just a fucking monster. Trying to roll with him is it's so adorable because it's like, I tried to put Tim Kennedy in a rear
good luck.
naked choke.
His neck's too goddamn big.
We were in France,
Yeah.
and I had him here.
for the
I had
jump?
him in a seatbelt, and I go, just so you know, and he goes, "This is adorable. You're so adorable." It was so bad. It didn't work out for me. And it's the same thing. So then we had both a knife. We had these knives, and he had to try to defend me against me with a knife. I cut him up. I was like, da da da. And he's like, fuck, It's a whole different thing.
Knife fighting is a little bit like Muay Thai. Nobody really wins. You just lose slower than the other guy. You know?
Lose
Oh my
less.
God.
Yeah. I mean, Muay Thai, it's just,
Fuck
chopping
that.
down the legs. It's nuts.
I'm not getting into a knife fight.
You ever read the book of Five Rings, Miyamoto Musashi? He said real sword fighting doesn't have parrying. It's not like ching, ching, ching. It's the first dude to your throat.
Yep.
It's that's what they're, just that, boom, like that, whoever gets there first. Ugh.
Yeah. That's why you don't see the French weren't able to colonize Japan, where they're like, you know what, we're going to stop here.
The Portuguese said, do not give them gunpowder.
Yeah.
They are the most ferocious people on the planet. Don't give them that technology.
Nobody listens to Europe because the French told us not to go to Vietnam. We were like, fuck you,
Oh,
pussy.
dude, right?
Even though there was the
French begged us to go to
the
Vietnam.
French, no, they warned us not to go there. So maybe the state at the time did, but the warriors who had left
Oh,
there
the
were
warriors,
like,
maybe,
don't
but
fucking
the
go.
French,
Yeah.
the French government begged us.
I don't know how the French come in for all this bullshit about being surrender monkeys or whatever, because that's not really how it went down, right? Like that's not how history worked. I mean, like of the top
World War
five,
II wasn't a good look when you lose your country in 14 days.
Well, that
it's not a good look when you don't have the infrastructure to defend it. But
Right.
there was also a fucking cavalry.
Maginot.
There was a French cavalry unit that took down a company of 3rd Panzer Division tanks on horseback, right?
Damn.
So, I mean,
Really?
that stuff doesn't fly with me.
No, I I get it, but
It's funny, and they
funny.
stink.
He's
the
hey, dude,
Vichy,
he's a
the Vichy
Francophile,
French.
okay?
Oh, yeah, I know. Relax. Sorry, Jefferson. My
Vive la
bad.
France! Vive la France!
I actually, if we invaded, I'm a non-interventionist most of the time, but if we decided to invade France, I'd be fine with it. Just spray them all with Axe body spray or something.
Yeah, speaking of that,
Right.
are you excited about Greenland becoming part of the United States?
Yeah, I've never understood. I don't understand this whole move for Canada and
55,000
Greenland.
extra people.
I mean, it's a very strange thing. These damn Greenlandians.
We already have a military base there. I don't know what else. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's just pressure to get it emancipated from Denmark so we can do more military stuff there that we want to do. I think
Yeah.
that's really all it is.
Well, Iceland and Greenland, I mean, these are big Vikings. So it's a good.
So the history boys, I think they talked about it on the show we did the other day, our history guys. The Vikings sent some people to Greenland, and it was a couple hundred years went by, and they're like, oh, fuck. What happened to those dudes?
They all died, right?
They died.
Yeah.
They probably died immediately.
Yeah.
Well, it was
Because
Eric
it
the
fucking
Red, right?
sucks
Like Eric
there.
the Red
Yeah.
murdered somebody,
They
so he
still
had to
want
go.
But they couldn't find food.
Yeah.
It's like you
No,
competing
it's
with
nothing.
polar bears.
There was no trees, right? Your Viking culture is based on building ships and fucking stealing shit from people.
Yeah.
And there's no people to steal
that's
from and no goddamn trees.
Yeah, I went hunting in the Missouri Breaks, and that is, it's just clay, and you can't grow anything.
Yeah,
And the Homestead Act, they had a bunch of people that went out there to try to like grow red wheat and stuff. Didn't go well, man.
Yeah.
It just you could live off if you could kill a deer, you were basically a hunter gatherer. And I can stalk deer. I don't know if you know that, but I'm the only guy who does. I use throwing stars and a sheath knife.
When I picked him up,
Very
he was doing
impressive.
push-ups. He was up to, what was it, 900 push-ups by the time I got here?
I do a lot of push-ups.
Yeah.
I have a really good body. Under the sweater, I have a great body.
She saw your moves last night
Yeah.
on stage.
She said, I'm a dancer. I'm very expressive.
Very nimble.
I like your. I've been watching. I was watching your. You seem to have a very strong command of male-female psychology.
Yeah, polarity is something I've been diving really deep into.
What do you mean by polarity? I'm new to this show. Explain it.
Polarity? It's essentially everything has a charge. So typically men are masculine, women are feminine, and then there's about 10% of people that are neutral, like actually neutral. It's not like a shell or some kind of trauma that's caused you. They just really aren't. They're not really interested in a lot of things. They kind of just, it's like those 50-50 relationships that you tend to see. And then what we've seen through culture and feminism specifically is women developing there's this author called David Data, and he speaks a lot about it.
That's DEIDA, by the way, if you want to look it up.
Yeah, his stuff is amazing, but developing a masculine shell, so then they're presenting masculine, and then men becoming effeminate and presenting more feminine. So when you were talking yesterday about like guys not being able to talk about your feelings or like kind of shoving it down, there is a time for that, absolutely, but that's something he would call like first generation masculinity, right? Which is the more traditional woman stays at home, traditional roles. Second iteration would be 50-50 relationships, and that's where you kind of neutralize the relationship. So you end up having a business relationship with your wife instead of having that chemistry, or like you become roommates. And it works for some people. It works for about 10% of people, but other people start complaining like he doesn't turn me on. She's always in sweatpants, whatever the thing is. And then the next, the third evolution, which he says more women are getting to and men are still kind of stuck in 1 and 2, is what he calls intimate communion. And it's being able to access both parts of you, like the feminine and the masculine. And we both have both, but being able to still have polarity when you get into the romantic setting. So if you're a woman and you have to be masculine at your job, and intentionally turning that off, and then understanding the role that you're supposed to be with your partner. And right now there's still so much like aversion to that because women don't want to lose their power because some of them feel like they just got it. And men, I think a lot of them still have to learn how to feel. You know what I mean? Like there's still, if I cry, then she's never going to see me as a man anymore. And there's all of those tropes online where women are like begging their guy to be more emotionally available. And then you see the red pill guys come in and they're like, don't do it. It's a trap.
It is a trap sometimes, right?
Sometimes,
It is a trap.
Because a woman can lose her attraction at the same time.
If
like,
you wallow in it,
If you
right?
wallow, that's
It's
what the
different.
the
Like
kids
there's
call 'em.
different kinds of
there's
emotions.
passion too, right? There's where you can cry.
I mean, you can cry at the Grand Canyon, right?
Yeah,
As a
dude.
man, that's
Yeah,
fair.
yeah. No, I agree. Like my feeling with my wife, who I just think 6 years going, and I just love her, and we have a great relationship, and it's intimate. But it's work. Like you have to tend to the garden, right? You and my feeling is like I always try to make sure like I get the door for her, or I just working on even your body or your how you look and how you take the time to spend, because I have 2 little kids, so you can get obsessed with that, but then show your kids that your wife is more important sometimes.
That's a good question. If you're just starting a relationship and you're talking about kids, ask the other person who comes first, me or the kids. And if they say the kids, fucking leave.
That's right.
Right. That
it's
relationship
gotta be,
is
you
over.
have to show your kids that your wife is the most important in some ways. Of course, my children, but this is mom and dad, and we're a unit. But keeping that attraction is like fighting gravity. You have to do that, And I also think that for me, I think keeping a little antagonistic, a sort of antagonism. I'm not interested in I am volatile. And I am going to fly off the handle. And I'm a dick sometimes, not apologizing for it. Because sometimes things piss me off and I'm going to be a fucking asshole. But of course, then I'm going to come back and it's going to be good. And I'm going to say sorry. But you got to keep that. Sometimes you got to keep a little, right?
We
What do
just
you
talked
think?
about this.
you do.
We actually
Yeah.
just talked about this last week. Like, women are gonna fucking be weird and crazy sometimes. Dudes are gonna be flippant and stupid, forget shit, and that's just the fucking way it is,
It
dude.
is.
And if you're the man, you're supposed to be the leader. So if you're out sulking because of that shit that just happened, or like, oh, my integrity was fucking questioned, like, shut your fucking cunt mouth,
Right.
and go back and do your job,
Correct.
asshole.
We-
Like, how you expect all this to function properly, and you're supposed to be the fucking leader, and you're crying in the corner.
We have too much access to each other now because of text messaging, social media. You used to be able to just take your phone off the hook and I'll talk to you tomorrow. And then you have the 24 hours to sit, stew, process.
Well, not if you're married.
Yeah.
If
What?
you were married, that wouldn't have applied even back before cell phones.
Did you ever hear John Vervaeke talk about how the rom-com is responsible for more destruction in relationships than anything else?
No.
Explain
It's
that.
great. So John Vervaeke is
Because I'm just looking for more fuel to not watch rom-coms.
Oh, dude, John Vervaeke is he's in the same department that Jordan Peterson is at the University of Toronto, I
Yeah.
think. And he's so smart. He has a series called The Meaning Crisis, and I just love this guy. And he said the rom-com, it came along and it put into the zeitgeist and in the Western brain, certainly in the American brain, especially, that there's the one, that the cosmos has found the one person that is going to complete you. And so this man or this woman that you found is going to play every role. You're putting their friend, their lover, their emotional, stalwart. They're your sponge. They're your protect. They're everything. And you can't do that. No, you're not my best friend. No, fuck off. I got my best friends. Rogan had the funniest joke about that. He goes, if you're my best friend, let me fuck other girls. You're not my best friend.
Yeah, I've never wanted to play
Don't
Madden
say you're
with
my
my
best
girl, yeah.
friend. You're not all those things. There is a separation here because I can't put all that on you. That's a lot to put on anybody. Let's do the best we can, and this is who I am, and I have my shortcomings and I have my strengths. Boom. What do you think?
Esther Perel talks a lot about that. So when you do that, you lose any kind of mystery in the relationship, and you need that uncertainty to have chemistry. If I know everything about you and you're my confidant and all of that, then you automatically you don't want to sleep with that person. So a lot of women, they don't have female friends, and then they're not like sharing stuff with them or their
Yes.
moms. And it's like if you have something that's bothering you, you're supposed to go give that to them first.
Yes.
And then if it's still not settled, then you can bring it to your guy. But if you're constantly bringing everything to him, it's not going to work. And if you want him to show up in every single way, he's going to disappoint you. So it's almost like you are trying to turn your husband into like the best female version of a partner, and then you get mad that he's not masculine and that he's not surprising you. Do you know what I mean?
That's great.
So you can't emasculate him and then wonder why you guys don't have any chemistry.
Yeah.
No, I would argue that this probably comes from Disney before the rom-com, right? I mean, the prince that was always waiting there, the prince that was promised for you, But somewhere
that's a
along
good
the
point.
line, the masculine nature of what we're talking about disappeared. Like, it's not Humphrey Bogart, sending you off to get on that plane, babe.
Well, what's the
Like,
chicken and the egg, though, right? Like, because certainly women, the value struggle, I don't mean ethics, I mean the value of masculinity changes once provide gets eroded or taken off the table, right? No question about that.
You have to evolve it, though.
Just certainly, right? So I don't know what the chicken or egg there is. Is it women entering the workforce and not needing men anymore and deciding I don't have to put up with your side of the bullshit because now I can cover your half?
But I think
dude,
that's-
I think it's,
or is it something else, right? I don't know if that. I don't know
think
if that
it's more
came first.
nefarious. I really do. I think that these things that get financed, even dumb ass shit like Lifetime movies. Who's always the bad guy in the Lifetime movie? The guy who has a job, making a lot of money, he's the boss, and he wants you to live in his penthouse. But no, you got to go back home to your little town and go with the loser who decided to become a plumber. But little did you know that he's actually
But I think
starting
it's
an animal sanctuary on the side.
But it's also saying, though, that money is not enough. And for a long time, that was the only thing that we looked at men for is like, can you provide a paycheck? And that's also at a detriment to men because it's saying your only value is so long as that you are a cash cow, right? Like you don't have feelings or needs and you're not a whole person. So that's a problem, too. Like you can't just be a paycheck because, no, that's not enough.
And also being forget about being a paycheck, but the paycheck itself. We talked about this earlier. there a very broad swath, perhaps a majority of people believe that if I can just get this next thing, I'll be happy.
Right.
And it's never fucking true.
No.
It's never true.
Well, that's kind of what I said too. As they had the camera on me as I was coming up to do this show, and I said, you'd think that this would be the pinnacle, and I'd be like, I'm done. This is good enough. You got to have a hole you can't fill as a comic. It's like it's never enough. Need more. Next. Now
Dopamine,
but that's a
baby.
good lesson, though. So, Chipper Jones used to talk about something called necessary arrogance.
Larry?
Yeah. I have to know that I'm better than the other guy, right? And it's that's a thing that you keep in your mind to keep you driving forward. I've never accomplished enough, right? So how do you map that on to a personal life without becoming pathological about it? I want to be the best possible man I can be, and I think the best way to think about that is to unpack the reason why. The reason that I keep myself in shape and know things and am a good protector and all this stuff isn't for my own sake, right?
Yeah.
Like every meaningful thing you do in life will be in the service of other people. And the self-care that you do and you should be designed towards that.
I couldn't agree more.
So how do you make yourself, I guess, how do you map that fucking relentless nature onto being a better husband
Well, I
and
think
father
first
and all
is
this
just
stuff?
being aware of this. So being aware that what's important to men probably is to be admired and feel significant. And part of that's just because you had a mother who who admired you and thought you were great.
I want the effort to be acknowledged. It's very big with me that if I make the effort, I want it. I don't want it to feel like it's taken for granted.
Yeah, all of that, 100%. But then I think kind of what's cool about being older and suffering, going through things in life, whatever it might be, whatever chaos hits you,
Enduring.
is that it forces you then to realize that the things you've been protecting, like this notion of significance or this need for admiration, is all a trap and isn't real. What matters is actually burning all that away and doing what you do for its own sake. My only drive a lot of times is original self-expression. It's very nice to be recognized. It's very nice to have people who you also admire, who you like, come and see you and give you that validation. It's great. But that has got to be something that you need to understand is also artificial. You do it for its own sake. The Schiller said that man is never more himself than when at play. And at play, not being hookers and an 8-ball, at play is the thing you would do for its own sake. The thing you would do for free because it's who you are.
Yeah, that is something I've been saying recently. I don't know if the quote is good enough, but the part of you that loves the thing you love most in the world is the best part of you. And that's what you should be feeding, right?
So I want to circle back real quick because you've been in this industry for a long time. You've seen
Long time. 30 years, Candice.
And,
30 years.
I'm sure that you've had these Dostoevsky conversations with Zach Galifianakis, and when you were at,
Live at the Purple Onion.
Yeah, exactly.
Zach is so funny.
He's a retarded person. I fucking love him so much.
Well, one of the things that excites me about your special is that you're not an industry plant. You're not out there saying some preconceived and paid for narrative. And I think going back to what we talked about before and perhaps the rom-com, I don't think a lot of people realize that things that get on TV, the story, the narrative, it's not accidental. There are things that are getting greenlit. There are things that are getting financed.
Operation Mockingbird.
That have a very
Just say it out loud.
specific perspective.
Like Hollywood has been paid by the agency for about 100 years now.
And what CIA doesn't do, China does.
Yeah.
And China has a very specific way they want the American public viewing the American man.
I mean, you've got to
specifically.
wonder why through the 80s and 90s. So we went from, think about the father archetype in the 1980s. It was fucking Carl, whatever the fuck.
Winslow?
Winslow, yeah. It was Bill Cosby, the character, not the guy, right?
Yep.
And then we go to Homer Simpson, the oaf, the fucking dipshit. That's who dad
And
is
that's
now,
all
right?
there is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, by the way, Zach is so fun. Like, I'll tell you, I'll jump back to that. But Zach, we're shooting Hangover 2, and there was a scene where the helicopter has to come up, and the helicopter was the blades were like this close to the building. We're on the highest building in Bangkok, and it's a safety thing. He's like, guys, when the helicopter comes in, it's gonna be very close. Make sure we're stepping back and all that and everything else. And it's just like Zach is so funny. Zach is like, any questions? Zach's like, yes. And he's like, yeah. And it's all like very serious. And he goes, what color is the helicopter? Just stuff like that. Or like somebody had a cigarette. And Zach was like, does anybody have a lighter? And Zach goes, yeah, I have an app. Like everything he does is so funny. Right? Yeah. Everything he does is just fucking.
He's the closest.
He makes me laugh so hard.
He almost made Hillary Clinton seem human. And that between two firms, this is the closest she ever came to not being a lizard.
He's just funny in his sleep. But back to that, I think though also Hollywood, it is just creative people a lot of times. And, I can tell you that most of the brass in Hollywood is just desperate to make money. Like most of the brass in Hollywood is just about money. They just want to make money. And what everybody's so afraid of losing their jobs. So they go with what's safe. They go with what they think is going to be like what people want. And so then actually innovation dies. And when something's a real success, it's an accident. It kind of found its way through by accident. People weren't paying attention. And it creeps through like Seinfeld or South Park. South Park is so irreverent, but they make so much money that the network needs it. Look at Taylor Sheridan. Yeah. Taylor Sheridan made Paramount Plus, and he is the anti-woke Hollywood mogul. That dude was like, fuck corporations, horses, guns,
Sicario.
America.
Sicario was unbelievable.
Yeah, and guess what? America likes that shit. Yellowstone was not. Yellowstone was nobody was gonna. Opera, nobody wanted that.
Yeah, let me push back on you a little bit there because Arnold Schwarzenegger sold more movie tickets than anybody in history.
Yeah,
and they just stopped making that movie.
No, because they got tired of
genre.
it. Because it did. Because
they started to parody it. That's what the Expendables is.
Yeah, like anything else. The problem with the '80s, it was very literal. Look, I mean, you had glamour rock, or whatever is it, glam rock, right?
Glam rock, yeah.
So guys,
hair
makeup,
bands,
and along comes fucking grunge. And grunge was just these dudes in flannels and singing from here. And all of us as Americans went, what the fuck is this? And if you talk to those glam rockers, they were like, I knew my career was over the minute I heard that first album from Nirvana. I knew it was done. Was it Teen Spirit?
Yeah.
It's like, I knew that we were done because I couldn't do that. And I hadn't heard that sound. So
I think Smells Like Teen Spirit and 10 by Pearl Jam came out in 91, same year.
There you go.
And
it was just new. It was like, so the Zeppelin comes along, fucking high math, astonishing, high voice. Like, what the fuck is going on with Zeppelin? Still amazing. Fuck all you guys. Zeppelin wins, okay? Fucking astonishing. Still. Kashmir. Are you tired of that song? Fucking impossible to be tired of fucking get it in. Anyway, that fucking sound, Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, the Giant in the Shadows, Jimmy Page, fucking John Bonham. Everybody after that, glam rock was trying to copy those motherfuckers. It just, everybody wanted to be that, just like with Nirvana. And I think just sometimes art is part of a zeitgeist and it just changes. And shit, we've heard it. After a while, it's like, heard that sound. Next.
Well, that's what happens
that way
though,
too.
right? And right now we're in this period, not just comedy, but film as well. We're in this period of no creativity and a lot of recycled IP. That's what happened to some degree with the glam rock stage. And now what's grunge? What's coming next?
That's right.
Like, I mean, do you have any thoughts on that? What might be coming down the pipe in entertainment that's different than what's been? Is anybody going to take any fucking chances?
Well,
anymore?
so I think that, I was very aware that in my 70 minutes of storytelling, very few people were going to sit through all of that. They're not going to do that online. We live in a time where we consume anything like candy. So it's really not about the theme of the album. Nobody's reading novels. It's about this sort of like this temporary dopamine hit. I think that has a shelf life. I think people start to realize this is leaving me empty. I feel burnt.
I mean, we've experienced it in some ways already, right? We went from the bar to the mixologist and
yes,
back.
dude. And so, exactly. And so I think craft, story, patience, letting something unfold, something that took time, that a human being took the time to see if you can replicate good vegetable tanned leather and fur.
Yeah,
you can't
make stuff again. Yeah,
you can't.
She was just talking about that earlier today. Nobody knows how to create anything anymore.
Yeah, mastery is gone.
Yeah, it's mastery is gone. And you think about it, when it comes to entertainment, that's how it fucking started. And I'm talking about the media age. The thing that made Louis L'Amour and Tolkien and C.S. Lewis famous was serialized chapter by chapter readings on fucking AM radio week to week in the 1930s.
Mere Christianity.
Yeah.
That was C.S. Lewis.
Dude,
I love you.
Fucking
love that you know C.S. Lewis. Fucking, he knows
the best book he wrote was probably A Grief Observed, and it's about him dealing with his wife's cancer.
I never read that.
Yeah,
I read.
check
Did
it
you
out.
ever read the Screw Tape Letters?
Oh yeah, Screw Tape Letters is the smartest treatise on human psychology I've ever read.
Fuck, dude.
It's so
Dan Hollaway, ladies and gentlemen.
The general premise.
If you don't know what Screw Tape is, check it out. You'll love it.
It's great. Yeah, it's like an uncle demon in
and
hell.
John Cleese actually does the audiobook.
Yeah,
He's
that's great. Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah,
dude, come on.
It
bro.
might be. It actually might be
Screw
free
Tape,
on Audible now. I think it's probably free
So
by
good.
now.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, everything's free if you go to
Tell me about about his
openlibrary.org.
observations of his wife with cancer.
Yeah, it's called A Grief Observed, and it's about his own grief as his wife was dying of cancer.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got to read that.
And it's C.S. Lewis, like one of the best thinkers of the 21st century. So,
truly, man.
Yeah.
Truly.
But I think this idea again, right, of who's going to do it and how it's going to be done. You talked about leadership before. I see so much, especially if you want to call it the conservative side, libertarian side, whatever it is, so much bitching about the liberal left, leftist Hollywood, liberal left, blah, 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 blah. When Zach Levy came out and said...
Zachary Levi, the actor?
Yeah, when he came out and he said, look, I'm voting for Trump and I know I'm probably never going to work again. And he got like 14,000 comments on that X post. And not a single person disagreed with him. And it was all like, oh, the Hollywood left, this and that. And I was like, we got a lot of money, man. This is our fault.
I agree.
But look how long it took. Like Sheldon Adelson, let's map it onto politics. Sheldon Adelson definitely has been giving money to the Republicans for a long time, but nothing close to what George Soros, who's not even a goddamn real American, has done, right? And it took the world almost ending in 2024. Literally, if and I don't give two fucks about Trump or any politician, to be frank, right? But if the Democrats and Kamala Harris had won this election, we would be living in a different world today. And if
100%.
Elon still censors on behalf of India and China and Turkey, and I don't appreciate it. But the fact that he bought Twitter changed the fucking world, right? But it took all of that. It took the world almost ending. And finally, one billionaire with some fucking sense is like, no, we got to do something.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because they're ROI oriented or if they just don't understand.
I don't care. Augustus Caesar wasn't a good man. He aligned his ego with the fucking best possible outcome for Rome. And that's what a good fucking leader does. We don't need a nice guy to be president. We need a guy who says, you know what? I'm American and fuck everybody else.
No, I agree with you. What I do think, though, is for whatever reason, the conservative side, let's just call it for simplicity's sake, they don't appreciate narrative. They don't appreciate storytelling. They don't compete in the culture. For 30 years, punted on education, punted on television, punted on radio,
Matthew Marston
punted on music.
Bitches about this constantly on Twitter.
But
and so do a lot of people.
And I like Matt a lot, but then Matt goes and wants to
people.
pitch a $100 million movie. Like, you don't need to do that. And I'm trying to explain to him, like, we need to make Tommy Boy. Tommy Boy, nobody thinks of Tommy Boy as any sort of political movie. There's no movie that instills American values subliminally in a younger generation like a Tommy Boy can. I mean, what is the movie? The movie is a lovable loser, right, who goes on a literal journey of self-discovery, learns that hard work, fellowship, partnership, rises to the occasion, saves his dad's company, gets the girl. That's America, man.
Yeah,
and but all anybody wants, if you ask anybody, like, what do you think of that treatise on the American values? It's like fat guy and a little. That's the art of it. That's the subtlety of it. And we don't have anything like that. We have podcasts. We got like fucking more people are going to get what America is out of 90 minutes of Tommy Boy than a fucking century of Sean Hannity. And trying to get somebody to make that
Such
is
a good point.
It's
Man.
insane. Man.
You're so right. You're right too. Those 90s comedies are not made anymore. You know, and I think again that creates a vacuum, that creates an opportunity to make a 90s movie again.
And nobody is gonna watch. Your kid is never going to get on. Your kids are not going to get on.
But don't you think the issue, though, is with those not being made is the left doesn't want to make it because they don't want to offend anybody, right? And they'll all get canceled. But the right doesn't want to make it because so many of them are so uptight. So they're
Yes,
like,
but
we
again,
can't
this
be...
is changing. So Hollywood quietly fired all their DEI people a year ago.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, all of them are gone. And it's just because Hollywood is, they pray to the great God of money. If it ain't making money, I promise you.
Took them a long time, man.
It always does. But you know, Hollywood
Well, that's
will
because they were
respond.
being subsidized.
Sorry?
Right?
China.
They weren't losing money that whole time. They were being subsidized by Chinese theaters. 4 of the 5 studios are owned at least partially by China. Superhero movies sell.
Well, you see this with media. So the Washington Post lost half their readership in 4 years. They lost $70 million last year. I think they're on track to do the same this year. Bezos was like, listen, I bought this for my daughter, and you guys got to wake up, okay? The guy who owns the LA Times fired the entire editorial board, which is beautiful. So the CNN is, and MSNBC, they make money not off advertisers. They make money off the cable carriage fees. Okay, that's how they make money.
Is that right?
Those contracts are up in about a year.
Oh boy!
And this is I'm telling you, when I say that they're in crisis, you have no idea. It's not. You're not alone in your contempt. You're not alone in the fact that you know that CNN or MSNBC, they don't live in the real. Joy Reid doesn't live in the real world. They are sitting back. And they've been so removed that all they do is deconstruct, and they have this strange virtual.
It's nihilism, Brian. Is what it is.
And it's nihilism and a virtual understanding of the world. It's this virtual reality thing. The rest of us are living in this world. We're trying to make a living and raising kids and contending. And one of the great privileges of being a stand-up comic is my audience. I know what they laugh at, and a lot of them are blue-collar, middle-class people. And they're Americans. And by the way, different colors, different creeds, different interests, you know? And so that's where you start to realize that what you're seeing in the news and what they're saying doesn't reflect reality. None of us. What are you talking about?
The Emperor's New Clothes ended a very specific way. And it wasn't with the Emperor continuing to be naked, right? Like at some point, people wake the fuck up, even if it's a little kid that's like, and maybe that's what this was. Maybe it was, because I don't know if you've tracked on any of this, but the younger generation, they're not fucking liberals anymore.
No, and it's,
you know what I mean?
No,
but it's anti-establishment. It's almost like we have an immune system response to inauthenticity.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the Democrats have learned.
I think
right?
I think they could have gotten away with everything else, all the censorship, all of it.
Yeah.
If they didn't tell people that couldn't afford to put food on their table that they could.
Well,
I think they could have gotten
so
away
many people
with it.
hit me up all the time, and then I get this more than anything else. When are you going to have an opposing viewpoint on? When are you going to have a Democrat on? And I'd say, I've invited them all.
Me too.
I offered Yaba Blay $10,000 to come on the show.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No. They're afraid.
Because they know they're full of shit.
I know.
They know it's a grift.
Well, Ibram Kendi, that fraud. I read his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. I read Robin DiAngelo's.
What was it?
fucking White
Anti-Racist
Fragility.
Baby is another one he wrote.
They are the
no
worst.
mistake that those are written at a third grade reading level.
Oh my God, Ibram Kendi, that fraud, that
Ibram
guy.
X.
Yeah, that
Kendi.
fucking dude who makes so much money telling corporations how to be less rich. I mean, racist. He will not hear his ideas in any arena.
No.
He just sits there with and surrounded by these fucking the same kind of people. This echo chamber,
Clucking sycophants.
They're like
I
domestic
think
chickens
it's S&M.
in a
I
coop.
really think there's a sexuality to it. I really do. We kind of talked about this before, but there's.
He's not. He's just pathetic.
I really think it's like I've been a bad colonizer. You've been a bad colonizer. Tell me I've been a bad colonizer again.
You're
Daddy.
so right, dude.
There's a sexuality
You're so right.
to it. There's.
You're so right. I want to be on my knees.
Yeah.
feed me
Well, it
bonbons.
makes sense because all this
Slap
is
my
my
face.
feet, bitch.
All
You're
this.
so fucking right.
Dude, it's this.
Robin DiAngelo too.
Oh my God.
And I realized
She's-
it. I was dating this girl in Brooklyn, and we were in the throes of the pandemic, and they were yo-yoing us. And you know, they were like, we're gonna release you guys. We're gonna let you guys out of the prison in 2 weeks if everybody's good and wears their mask. And then we got like with Bill de Blasio, who by the way is one of the worst human beings to ever walk the face of the
most
planet.
arrogant. One of the most arrogant fucking frauds in the world.
The fact he's on MSNBC tells you all you like. The guy should be in jail. He made $1 billion disappear like fucking Copperfield.
It shows you exactly what a weak man in a position of power is capable of.
That's
and
his
that
real
should
name, by the way,
frighten
Warren
everyone.
Wilhelm.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah.
He thought it was too white, so he went with Bill de Blasio.
I thought it was too Jewish. I think.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah. So he
Well,
went with,
okay, that happens in the
Italian.
business, doesn't it?
So I'm with her, and we have plans to go out. We've been locked down, right? And people that had different lockdown experiences. My New Jersey, New York lockdown experience was insane, and I'll never get over it. And I want accountability. There's no stopping talking about it. I still talk about it in my set. I will talk about it until there's accountability. Like the fact that everybody, I'm doing the Trump weave right now, but the fact that everybody's just like, oh, well, mistakes were made. That no. No. You need to acknowledge what you did. Otherwise, I can never trust you ever again. You're a threat to my very well-being.
Church hearings on this. 100%.
Yeah, there needs to be. People have to end their lives in prison because of what they did. They have to be there forever, right? So we're supposed to go up state. We're supposed to go like apple picking outside or something like that, right? And then when I go to pick her up and bring her, she's like, there's a march today. Now, she was nuts. Made me wear a mask in bed. I swear to
I'm
God.
sorry. Can we get a fucking recap of this, please?
This is so hot. Let me get my hand in my pants.
First year we were seeing each other. Not
Did
once
you wear a
this
mask
dirty
on your
bitch-
jet too, or
No,
how's
this is
that
the
work?
thing. For first year we were together. Not once did this dirty bitch ask me to put on a condom. But Joy Reid says I'm a super spreader, so here I am pumping away in my N95. So fucking.
It's good cardio.
To
be fair.
got to mix it in somewhere.
Yeah.
So she's like, we got to go to the march. And I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me, right? Like this is our, your first day out, and your first day out of summer, and you want to go to the march. It was some black trans march outside the Brooklyn Museum. And then I'm like, well, not fucking. We're gonna be around everybody after. Like, what are you talking about? We can do anything but this. Choose anything, but we're not doing this. And then she looks at me and she goes, these people need our help. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, you're fucking 30 years old. You live with 5 other people in Bushwick. Like somebody should be marching for you.
This is where
that's
the white.
what it was.
Yeah.
I saw it in her face and I saw it in her eyes, and I was like, oh my God, this is about, you need to feel superior.
That's right. I'm the good white, and I have to protect the voiceless and the powerless, the browns, the blacks, the indigenous, from the bad whites.
What's either that
so
or
that's
it's,
my job. That's why I was saying
Yeah.
it's about saving lives.
Yeah. It's either that or it's oppression FOMO, right? Like now that we've transitioned from an honor-based currency to a social victim currency, now that if you haven't, and I don't, it's exactly what you said yesterday. I'm white and I can be the victim now.
Yep. There are
Finally,
grifters.
and that's what Antifa is.
There are grifters in every society.
It's so
social
fucking
capital.
stupid.
You can be a minority.
Jesus Christ, man! It's like the lowest frequency kind of communication that you can possibly imagine.
But again, I go back to that's our fault, right? And going back to and a big through line through your special. And again, when it comes out on Netflix, you guys have to see this. It was phenomenal, thought provoking, brilliant, but also silly and entertaining. It was a masterpiece. It really was.
Thank you.
And the through line of that is the doom scrolling social media, dopamine addicted crowd, right? And I say this as much as I may hate that, it's a truth and it's a reality of our present and our future. And your kids are going to spend their life on a screen.
No, sir.
And well, their friends are gonna, generations are gonna. And unless we recognize that and compete in that space, they're gonna be watching something. It's gonna be somebody's message. It's gonna be somebody's story. And they're gonna be taking that and they're gonna be internalizing that. And we can invest all we want into another fucking news media.
You're so right, dude. It rests on us.
We have
people
to do
are
it.
making fun of, like, they're complaining about the politicians in Los Angeles. You voted them in.
Yeah.
So that's on LA. That's on the voters. Like, If you want better people besides Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom, vote
If
them
they did
in.
vote.
And you
if
can't,
it wasn't fraud.
You can't
But
be.
yeah.
You can't expect to be competitive in any arena if you are going to be a Luddite, right? If you're going to reject modernity, whatever it happens to be. If you're still trying to build a better bow and arrow once gunpowder comes out, you're fucking retarded,
That's
and
right.
you're gonna die.
But they're going to be watching
right?
The Office for the next 500 years.
Hey, The Office is dope. So
If we need to do
Jim and Pam are horrible
We're
human
going to do
beings, but
Newsmax 3 next, and we're going to invest in that. Nobody's watching.
yeah.
You know, and we can make fun of the superhero movies all we want. They're going to watch. They're going to watch
Until
the
we
movies for
start
the next.
taking control of the narrative and telling stories.
Correct.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
There's a big push recently though, so we essentially have toppled legacy media through with a bunch of fucking crackers and podcasts, right?
That's very true.
A bunch of white bearded dudes at podcasts have decided to just overthrow the media, and it worked pretty goddamn effectively, right?
Truth is. It turns out truth is popular.
Yeah, and it's like we need to start the long form discussion insulated us from some of this bite-sized data that we've gotten used to, I think, right? Like the exposure of J.D. Vance to people, this weird narrative, and then you see him talking, you're like, he's not weird.
It was
Like
so
he
annoying.
I might not like him,
It
but
was
he's not
so
weird.
annoying. Like you guys are trying to push weird
Yeah.
and joy
Yeah.
and vibes.
Like, fuck off, dude.
Like you are so condescending.
$1 billion.
Yeah.
And they
So
came up with the
condescending.
messaging. They came up
But
with.
They're so
weird.
not creative, and
Yeah.
Trump's a fascist. That's the best you can
it's
do.
so silly. Like all the fucking classic liberal dudes in media, Charlemagne, Stephen A. Smith, all these guys that have been outspoken, they're like, he's not racist and he's not fascist. What the fuck are you guys talking
But you
about?
need old-fashioned liberals. I love divided government. I want opposing points of view.
Separation of powers. That's
Of course.
Montesquieu.
Yeah, I
man.
don't
That's
want
like
people
one
to
of the
become more
best
Republican. I want
parts.
the Democrats to
I want
become Americans again.
Yeah, I want both sides, but talk to each other.
Yeah.
Let's
Well,
hash it
But
out.
we also need to understand that, like there are first principles, and times and circumstances will change. We have to apply these for, like, how does this apply now? And that's one of the challenges, right, that we have. That's why the Constitution was left open for amendments, frankly, right? Like this idea that it's a dead document is not true because it's been amended 27 fucking times, asshole.
And nullified by the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
So
To some
But
degree,
see, I
right?
love
Which
that
needs to
you
be
guys
revisited.
are having this conversation because it starts also with understanding what got us here.
Yeah.
It starts by understanding like that the founding fathers solved the political problem in many ways, and understanding that exactly what it took, the intellectual architecture and the debate that got us here, and how lucky we are.
I mean, if you could create a machine that fixed itself,
Yeah.
you would end a lot of suffering for a lot of people, and that is what the U.S. Constitution was meant to do. The problem is we've decided to change the way we progress, and it's certainly we're in a microwave culture now, but we used to progress slowly over time. And there's this, it's true in computer security. You can have speed and you can have uptime, right? Like the amount that it's available, and you can have cost. You can't, or security and uptime and cost. You can't have all three. You can have two of those three things. You can have speed and security, right? But it's going to cost you a fuckload of money. You can have speed and low cost, but there's going to be some holes in it. The faster you move forward, the more mistakes will be made. And that's a tough sell. For whomever's getting fucked with right now, that's a tough sell.
I'm glad you closed the knife. I thought you were going to open us all up. I thought you were going to bleed all of us.
I might.
Candice, circling back to you, so you think that you're gonna be able to keep your kids off of screens?
No, it's not. They are not like weird screen-free kids, but it's teaching them how to self-moderate everything. So we will give him, like my oldest is 5, we'll give him an iPad, but he now turns it off on his own. He'll be like, I don't want crazy brains. He realizes that if I'm scrolling on this, there's a consequence, and I don't like how I feel. I don't like how I behave around everyone else. And same with candy. Like he doesn't eat it, and if he does, he eats it sparingly. He'll go to a birthday party and not eat cake. He's like, I don't want that sugar today. And he's 5.
Wow.
And I don't do it shame-based because, that's like not my thing, but it's just teaching you to be so in tune with yourself and that everything does have a cost, right?
Yeah.
And if you're willing to pay that or not. So I think that the parents that are like, no screens whatsoever, you're setting them up for failure. I
That
agree.
never works.
It won't
Abstinence
work.
never works.
No.
It doesn't work in sex education. It didn't work in prohibition.
No.
It doesn't work in recovery, in my opinion. If you're so,
This
if
is like when
something
I-
has such a hold on you that you can't look at it, then
Yeah.
you're fucked, dude.
Well, this is like when I bought a gun, and I said to the dealer, I said, I need a good safety and all that for my kids. And he goes, you can do all that, but education is what you want. You want your kids to understand guns.
The relationship,
know
like
guns.
drawing that straight line from action to consequence as early as possible has got to be the most important thing you'll ever teach your kid, right? Because that, for me, learning that as a kid was important, like certainly in growing up. And when I got into the military, it became the part of it that got added was being responsible for other people. Like I played team sports in high school and shit, and certainly I understood the idea of being on a team, but having adult human beings that relied on me for their safety was something new for me. As a somebody in their early 20s, that's new for anybody, I think, right? And it added that's when it clicked for me. Before I was doing it on autopilot, that's when it clicked. I'm like, oh shit. If you can draw a straight line from action to consequence, then you can turn almost anybody into a functioning adult, frankly, right? Because everybody's got stuff that they want, desires, whatever the fuck, hope, dreams. Yeah. And you're like, hey, this is how you do this. And if you fuck up, this is going to happen. It won't be the end of the world, right? Then you can take measured risk and get to where you're trying to go, right? But if, like she's saying, if you just like put them out in pasture somewhere, as soon as they get exposed, we saw this recently. I don't know if you've heard this story, but North Korea sent some troops over to help Russia.
Yeah, I read that this morning.
They got fucking iPads. You know what they did? They fucking started looking at porn and they got addicted and they had to pull them back to North Korea because they were addicted to pornography in a fucking combat zone. Dude.
That's
what
crazy.
some guys used to
You've
call
never seen it?
These are
You've
like
never seen
adults.
it?
These are adult warriors.
Yeah.
And I'm getting like, I don't know what level of training North Korea gets. It can't be great because they're fucking retarded up there. But the government, I mean.
Well, these are the special crack unit forces.
Yeah.
They get two bags of rice.
12,000.
But still, it is a regimented unit, right? They are disciplined. If anything, they're disciplined.
And fanatically devoted to the
Yes,
dear
and fanatically
leader.
devoted. And
But
still,
pussy is strong, bro.
all it took was a nipple, dude.
Because Pornhub, I got to just make sure I got to run, boys. This has been awesome. Yeah. I have to go because I have to go.
Let's rock and roll.
Yeah.
Let me wrap it up.
Yeah.
Give me Callen, tell people what's next, where they can find you.
I'm going to be, I'll be in Minnesota at the House of Comedy February 13, 14, 15. Then in Miami, Doral, the 20th, 21, and 22, doing stand-up. And I'm going to be, now we begin the process of writing new shit. And that should be painful. But other than that, man, I'm just happy to be here, and I love talking to you guys.
Dude, can't thank you enough for making time, man. Really,
we could talk. We could do this. I could talk
appreciate it.
about this for you guys. I mean, this is important conversation. So,
Well, maybe when you're down in Miami, come.
yeah,
do it, man.
I have to get to my kung fu class. I can't. Sundays are
Gotta do it.
kung fu days, and then I have my step class. It's how I keep my body. So,
what about
what's
the back?
word?
It's working,
Light,
so just keep
light,
keep it
yeah.
up.
And the backflip is coming along.
The backflip is coming along so well, you guys. I can really pop it. It's good.
It's about the tuck, as you said.
It's all about the talk. It's really about acrobatics, guys. It's about aerial awareness. And that's
Follow Dan Holloway on the Citizen Podcast. Drinking Bros, Drink Hard AF Seltzer. Candice, any final words?
No, thanks for coming. This is
Thanks
great.
for having me.
All right, guys.
Appreciate it.
It's Gerard Michaels at Gerard versus Evil. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.